Hello, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to our discussion this week for TEL 708. We are going to be talking about professional learning communities, and specifically, we are looking at the reading from Hord and Sommers, the 5 components of a professional learning community, this figure that we had in our book. And of the 5 that are listed, we're just going to be talking about which one do we believe that our colleagues, that ourselves and our colleagues in our workplace context would struggle with implementing the most, and sort of explaining that. So I don't know what the two of you thought. I will say that when I was going through and reading all 5 of them, I kind of felt like there were some that I was like, oh yeah, for sure, we already do that, or it like seems very natural. But then there were a couple where I was sort of not quite sure exactly what to think, and I was like, do we do that? I also have the workplace context experience that I was in a classroom before and worked at a private school, and so I remember that community and what it was like having a head of school and that sort of structure, versus now where I work at an educational organization that's a nonprofit. I don't work in the same K-12 structure. We have directors and program managers and project managers. So like the context of the book, again, where it's talking about K-12 and like principals, it uses that terminology. I kind of remember that back when I had like a head of school. And so some of my recollections, but I think the one that I landed on that was struggle with implementing the most. And I feel honestly, because I thought back not only just to like the school context, but also to organizational context where I've worked. So I worked at ASU before, not as a professor, but I worked in a community organization under Arizona State University. And while this was higher ed, it was also sort of a different structure. But the shared and supportive leadership is the one that like I feel really bad saying that, because it's not to say that our leadership was not supportive, but in terms of shared, because like what it says in the book is administrators and faculty hold shared power and authority for making decisions. And I think I kind of struggled with that because I've heard that, you might have heard like flat hierarchy, but it doesn't actually work that way in practice. And I don't know that I've actually ever seen really shared power and authority. Like in certain things, yes, but when it comes to like, this is our shared power and authority over a PLC, I don't know. I feel like that was the one that I kind of struggled with the most. And like, and then thinking back to my classroom days, in the classroom, I thought about, no, like the head of school was really like the head of school, and like that was an admin was admin, and we were the teachers, and it was a very segregated sort of thing. I don't know that I felt like a shared commitment over like the authority, but there was a couple of other ones where I was like, oh, like, but I think that's the one that I kind of landed on. So I don't know, what did y'all think?
I think you're right about that, Kelly. I think that because I was struggling with which one to pick, and I did think about that one. I didn't decide to discuss that one, but I do agree with you that it is kind of an issue. And like you said, like I hate to say this too, but we've talked about this at my tribal college. It's a nice idea to have shared, to have this shared authority or whatever between faculty and staff, but the reality of it is it just doesn't work that way. So yeah, but yeah, I agree with you on that one. For my, well, before I go on, Melissa, did you have anything to add to that?
Thanks for asking. I actually wrote my paper predominantly on like the really poor leadership of my school, which is why I left. So it was pretty cathartic actually, to like identify all the reasons. I'm like, yeah, here, this is a problem because I think that the leadership is like foundational for all the others in a way, right? They create the conditions, they create the culture. And even though like in my school, people had different values and beliefs, I think we could have worked together and overcome that if there was that structure and support to learn collectively, but without the leadership, it just doesn't happen. And I have other thoughts about shared leadership, but I know you were going to go, Bobby, so I can talk about that later.
Oh no, it's fine. Actually, yeah, so the shared, now that I think about it, the shared personal practices, that's the one that I chose. That's the one that I landed on for this discussion, just because all of the other things in the in that section on page, is it page 9? We've had a lot of discussions, or we have done and we have talked about and we have implemented most of those things. But the one thing that we didn't do is the shared personal practices. And I was reading in the book, and they talked about like visiting the classroom, other faculty visiting the classrooms, or even staff and administration, observing and giving feedback, like positive critiques. We actually have had discussions about doing that, but we haven't done any kind of process to implement anything as far as making sure faculty and staff are visiting the classrooms and figuring out what's going on. I mean, aside from that, we always welcome each other into each other's classrooms. Like, in fact, I actually wish other faculty and staff would come and visit my classroom to see what the process looks like for me as an instructor, but also to see what the students are doing and how difficult the art process actually is and everything that entails. Because a lot of people think that Indigenous artwork is easy and it's like therapeutic, and it is, but you have to build your skills up before it can get that way. And so the thing that the discussion question asks is well, why are we not doing it? Or for me, it's like, what's holding us back? I think it's a lack of energy and a lack of time that we all have, and it's probably the lack of setting up requirements for this process to happen. So the only time we've ever actually visited other classrooms is as department chairs. So as department chair, part of the job is to, in that capacity, you go to a classroom of the people who are only within your department, and you observe them. And it's like an assessment process, and you write down, you jot down, take notes and what they're doing, and are they dressed professionally? And I don't know, it's just, I don't think it's very useful. I think that process is outdated. And I've been on both sides of the fence of that. And I feel like when you're being observed, of course, you're going to be on your best. You're going to put out your best practices when you know that you're being observed by your department chair. Anyway, I'm not sure how administration will decide, or if they ever decide to implement shared personal practices in that capacity, but I think eventually the process, the assessment of faculty process has to change. And maybe they could do like a professional development week where people can actually pick their time and go and visit other classrooms, like take a day off of work, not really work, but take a day off of maybe teaching, and then just go visit other faculty and classrooms and see what's going on in there, and then for the other faculty, it'd be great for them to get like, well, hey, how did I do? What did you think? How do you think I can improve? Just those are some of my thoughts.
And that could be, oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I was just going to say, that sounds like a nice organic way to also sort of encourage more collaboration and co-teaching, and who knows what could lead from there. But if somebody has the opportunity to like watch you teach and get inspired, like see connections with curriculum, it could be really
Yeah, I was
helpful.
definitely going to say co-teaching. Like co-teaching came to mind for me, and it was really interesting to hear your perspective from higher ed. Because again, going back to my in the classroom days, that was one of the things we sort of did, where we did kind of like watch each other. But I related to what you said about you wanted people to come into your classroom, because when I was a new teacher and I came in as a year 1 teacher and then even a year 2 teacher, I came in sort of a different type of teacher. I taught STEAM, I taught makerspace. I was doing like art and computer science together and making these really interesting things. And a lot of the teachers that were the core subjects were very standoffish about that. And and my classroom was sort of like chaotic and messy, and they didn't want to see that. But they wanted me to see their classrooms and how they did things. And when it came to observation, it did feel like it was more of a like required exercise of something that we did. Like our administration sort of suggested it and was like, yeah, you should do this, you should do this. And I like took them up on that and went to see different styles of classroom management and what it was like. But nobody came to my classroom, and it was just one of those things where it's interesting. But yeah, to your point, Melissa, I definitely think it could foster more collaboration, more co-teaching if you see something that and I did actually get the opportunity to co-teach a couple of projects with some teachers that was a really great experience in terms of that. But and I also relate to what you said, Bobby, about the really formal, like sort of outdated mode of observation that feels like you're being watched. And so of course you're on your best behavior and you're not actually going to see. It's something that just came to mind that I just remembered, a practice that I actually had to do as a part of this grant process that I was part of with a college to teach a new AP class for computer science principals. They actually had us record ourselves teaching for like a chunk of time, and we submitted those in like an online community of practice to like share and like observe things about ourselves for like self-reflection, and then like watch other people. So that was another interesting take on it. But yeah, that was cool. Thanks for sharing and hearing that perspective of what it's like in a college teaching capacity.
Thank you. How about you, Melissa? Which one did you land on?
Well, like I said, I did the leadership. Leadership sort of like with the focus of culture, because I know culture isn't one of the 5 components, but they talked about it a lot, like needing to have that support and that willingness. And I guess that would maybe fall under the collective learning, like if there was an appetite for that. But in my particular school, the leadership is just like really toxic, and it's really sad. I am the 11th person to leave in 3 years, and we only have 28 people. So I mean, you can see it's pretty pervasive. But she and there's a head of school and an assistant head of school, and they're just like a little echo chamber, and they're very detached from everything that goes on. And it's very authoritarian, and they just like give these mandates without thinking about the context. And there's like so much resentment, and it's created this like super political environment. And I was lucky because like as this school counselor, I was kind of like a department of one, and I just floated in between teachers and administration. But I it was just like you absorb all that negativity, and what would happen is that like there's distrust among different cliques and groups, and so it's sort of everything fizzled from there. Anytime there was any kind of like change initiative, it was almost like people were out to sabotage it just based on who was presenting it. Like they didn't even think about whether it was good for the students or the school. But what I was going to say about the shared leadership part, you guys had mentioned earlier you weren't sure if that was like feasible. I hear what you're saying. I don't know, maybe I'm like overly optimistic or something, but I feel like it could happen. It just not necessarily in like a fully like socialist way, right? But maybe more like, you have the structure, but even if it's like the meeting wise, like changing roles and having other teachers be facilitators some weeks, or different teachers offering PD at faculty meetings, or just other sorry, my dog's coming in, other opportunities for like moments for people to shine within the community. I feel like that would go a long way towards giving people that sense of like ownership.
I agree. I think that it would give people who aren't great at, like, for example, I'm not great at leading meetings or facilitating meetings. So I think that would be something for, people who want to improve those skills. That would be a perfect example. And then even with our faculty meetings, to have somebody else facilitate those, that'd be great. Yeah, so
But you need a leadership who's willing to relinquish some control.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. Well, that kind of wraps up our discussion for this week. Hope that you enjoyed. I know it seems like it was kind of short. There was just 3 of us tonight, but I really enjoyed these observations and looking forward to reading through everyone's comments too in the forum. So hope you all have a great night, and we'll see you next time. Bye.